As COVID-19 has put the world on pause for the last few months, Philadelphia has had a second epidemic to deal with: their sports teams. 2020 has been the year of high expectations and unfulfilling results for every major Philly sports team. It was expected to be a year similar to that of which Miami is currently enjoying. All of the Philadelphia teams were supposed to contend for championships. It all started in 2019 when the 76ers signed Al Horford away from the Celtics and got Josh Richardson from the Heat. They lost J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler, but this team was a bounce of a basketball away from the Eastern Conference Finals the year before, and now they had a rim protector to be on the court when Embiid wasn't. Maybe they were a little weak on shooting, but their defense was going to be stifling. And then they had all the chemistry of oil and water. The Horford deal proved to be a colossal mistake. There were careless turnovers galore, and they couldn't shoot threes to save their lives. And they still had the 6th seed in the East when the season stopped after they put a beat down on the Houston Rockets. When it was announced 3 months later that a bubble was being created in Disney, it was the perfect reset for an underachieving team who needed to get healthy that couldn't play on the road. The 76ers were poised to be the comeback team of the bubble, but nothing changed. Ben Simmons went down in the seeding games, and the Sixers limped into a first-round matchup with the Celtics, where they were promptly put out of their misery. The process is dangerously close to the end of its theoretical rope, as Brett Brown was fired and the fans continue to lose patience. All of that losing was supposed to bring good players, and good players bring winning. At least, that's what we thought. Speaking of losing games to get better, the Philadelphia Phillies have been a losing team since 2012, when they signed Bryce Harper to a 13-year, $330 million deal in 2019. They had slowly been rebuilding, and it culminated in the massive get of a former MVP at the age of 27, in what was possibly the greatest offseason the Phillies ever had on paper. 5 All-Stars were added to a young team. This was the year that they would make it back to the playoffs. The Phillies got off to a hot start, leading the division in June. Then Andrew McCutchen got hurt, and the decline began. The plummet intensified in September, so badly that Gabe Kapler was fired and the team finished 81-81. Joe Girardi was brought in, along with his former shortstop Didi Gregorius, and Zach Wheeler to be the 1A to Aaron Nola's A. And the team was good. That is, if you ignore the historically bad bullpen that blew more leads than it held. Despite the bullpen and a sudden string of injuries, the Phillies still had a chance to make it to the playoffs for the first time in 9 years, and all they had to do was win 1 game against the Tampa Bay Rays. And they failed. Once again, a team that went through rebuilding pains, that was supposed to be reaping the fruits of said pain, gets to watch from the couch as other teams who rebuilt themselves in half the time it took the Phillies play in October. The Philadelphia Flyers were the most impressive team in Philly of 2020. They had the lowest expectations, too. Sure, they were supposed to make the playoffs, but they always lose to the Bruins or the Penguins. And then they won 12 of their last 13 regular season games, including the bubble seeding games, earning the number 1 seed in the East. They disposed of the Montreal Canadiens in 5 games, but then, just like every other Philly team in 2020, they fell short, losing in 6 to the New York Islanders. The most successful Philadelphia team in 2020 was a 1 seed that lost in the second round. But surely the Eagles would be a good team. They had been since Doug Peterson took over and drafted Carson Wentz. They won a Super Bowl and have made the playoffs the last 3 years in a row. They have a tough schedule, but in the NFC East, all you need are 8 to 10 wins. Sure, Howie Roseman made a questionable choice when he drafted a backup quarterback in the second round, but he also got Carson some weapons on offense, an elite corner in Darius Slay, and everyone was finally healthy. And then the injuries hit, for the 3rd year in a row. And then they lost to the Washington football team. Carson played one of the worst games of his career. And then he followed it up with a performance that gave Week 1 a run for its money against the Rams in another loss, as the questions started to mount about what was wrong with Carson Wentz. But at least he had a perfect opportunity to bounce back against the Bengals, the team who had the worst record in the league last year. And then the Eagles tied the Cincinnati Bengals, 23-23. Carson showed flashes, but barely looked like an average quarterback, let alone the MVP candidate he was in 2017. Doug Peterson was known as the gutsiest coach in the league, especially after he called a trick play on 4th down in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. But last Sunday, with 19 seconds left, he told everyone that he no longer trusts his quarterback by punting on 4th and 12, giving up, and settling for a tie. This is not the team that won a Super Bowl 3 years ago. And the season isn't over, but it looks like this Eagles team will fall in line with every other Philadelphia sports team of 2020, failing to meet expectations.